Hello, and welcome to Wise Wednesdays with Melanie Morrison. I am really happy to be here on this magical day where we're all shifting and we get to um, step into a new beginning in the United States. I kind of feel like I'm stepping into a new beginning as well. So, I today we're going to be talking about the nature of abundance, and I'm excited to introduce Lisa Michaels. She is the author of Natural Rhythms, a sacred guide into nature's creation secrets. And so she'll be sharing with us a little bit about how you can take the elements, fire, earth, air, water, and spirit, and work with them in a way that you can ground in your creations so that you can produce things with abundance. And I am so excited to bring her on and just share it from the source. I fell upon Lisa Michaels right after I was kind of stepping into I guess they call it my awakening period. And so I was streaming in all of this information and doing these meditations, and I could feel that beautiful Kundalini energy and I did quite often feel a little bit ungrounded. And so I was so grateful to find Lisa Michaels' work because I was able to kind of take everything I was learning and pull it into my life in a very grounded and practical way. So I'll bring her right on and she can tell us a little bit about that. Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, Melanie, I'm so happy to be here. Just thrilled to be with you and your audience and excited.
So, if you could just tell us a little bit about your passion, a little bit about the elements, and how it led you to using it within business, using it within creating abundance and leadership.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, this all started for me back in 1999 of all times. I was actually staying with someone who was a mentor of mine, and I was really questioning, like, I've been studying all these different things and I don't understand how they all fit together. And I woke up the next morning and I had this instant download of that I'd been studying the elemental forces and how they function in your consciousness. Originally drawing four circles on a napkin because that was the closest thing, and then really started to see how spirit was the glue that held all of these elements together and how different things that we study and do fit into one of the four elements. It's been such a powerful journey. I've been teaching them and working with them pretty much ever since. So the interesting thing is each of these elements are living forces. So when you approach the living forces, just like when you approach another person and you connect with them, that's when you really start to understand who they are and what they stand for. So these teachings are really alive and they'll meet somebody wherever they are. If somebody's brand new to working with the elements, they're going to meet you there. If you've had a lot of experience with it, they're going to meet you there and take you to your next level of development. So, because they're the core forces of creation. So, nature models abundance for us all the time in a lot of different ways. If she's left to her own devices, Mother Nature, if she's not overridden or overtrodden. And one of the things she does is she really creates abundance in rhythmic cycles. So we are in winter right now in North America, and there's a lot that is quiet and growing underground and resting, which means that we need to remember that phase of the cycle as well. And come spring, it's going to be active growth, many more things growing. And then summer, we start to see the peak of the growth, and then we begin to see the harvest. So that's the cycle. But the interesting thing is there are things growing to some degree all the time. I mean, we have evergreens, we have cool weather crops. Like I actually have things in my garden that I'm harvesting right now. It's not as abundant, and it is particular to this season and this cycle. So we just really want to be aware of how nature functions, because that informs us more deeply about how we need to function, how we need to get in alignment with those natural cycles in order to create more abundance.
I love that, and it reminds me to, well, it reminds me of a couple things, is that nothing blooms all year, but, not the same thing, but then it also reminds me to be mindful about what I'm planting and when I'm planting it. So,
Yes.
I just love the wisdom that we find in in nature, and I also find that the more that I connect with all of the seasons. And, sometimes I feel like it's healing my relationship with certain seasons. For a long time, I really had an aversion to winter. And I thought about that and I said, what does that mean about the cycle of being a woman? How am I going to feel about the winter of my life if I haven't been able to embrace just the season of winter? And
Exactly.
so I really began to really look at that and see how I could embrace that more. Did you have any thoughts on um, the elements and the seasons and nature's rhythms as it pertains to women in general?
Oh, it's so profound the way that it correlates to women in general. I mean, the maiden, the youth part of our cycle is spring. No, the summer is where that's kind of the mother phase. It's the ripe phase. It's the birthing phase. And then as you move into autumn, that's the more mature phase. And then into winter really is the elder years. And you're so right, Melanie. If you don't learn to honor each phase of the cycle, you get really frustrated. And our culturally, we're addicted to two different things. Number one, we're addicted to youth and
Mm.
number two, we're addicted to growth. Both of those are just certain phases of the cycle, which leaves the rest of the phases out. So maturity and harvest is not honored as much. And because we want to see growth, 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 we don't take the time to what have we already grown that we can harvest and use as powerful resources? And then how do we put resources away for the winter? And how do we use the depth of winter for our real reflection, for our bringing our wisdom forth, for seeing what's next? If you never take that deep reflection time, and I think those times really cycle through when a woman's still in her cycle during her lifetime, you have a connection to the whole phase every single month. And you can feel that energetically. And it helps when you, again, you know how to take the time of that monthly cycle and just go within and to see what it's telling you. But if you haven't really connected with that phase and you haven't allowed yourself to feel it and to honor it, you're likely to skip past it. And we got to be busy. We got to keep doing. We got to keep in this growth cycle. We can't take any downtime, and that burns people out and that wears out a system. And every time there's new growth or a new phase of something, it has its lifetime. It has its longevity. And we need to be aware of when is it coming time for that to close and for the next thing to be born and for the underground quiet time of winter.
Yeah, and I love how you say, like, talk about being like, enjoying the moment that is, instead of always
Mhm.
striving for the next season. I think that's so important, and we forget to rest and replenish, to
Yes.
reboot. I mean, even a
Yeah.
computer takes a moment to reboot, and so
Right.
that's such a good reminder to look at abundance and how it's related to nature. I have a thought, about just feminine leadership. What I like about when I'm incorporating each of the elements, I I feel like I get all. of the elements of action. It's like when I've learned about, say, the sun and the moon, it's like it's presented to me like, oh, the sun is action and the moon is mystery and contemplation and psychic energy. What I like about the elements, because sometimes I feel like, well, but women are action. Why can't we be sun energy too? And I guess that's what I like about the elements, is just it has all of those aspects because you have the fire of energy and action. In what way have you found like that your work with the elements and nature really assists leadership?
Well, let's go to the topic that you were just talking about and explore that just a little bit further. In spirit, and let me just say, in every element, it has a rhythmic cycle. And in spirit, the rhythmic cycle is yin and yang, active and receptive. But again, we kind of function in a particular model of yin and yang, which is the model that's kind of projected on it, like you said, that the feminine is receptive and the masculine is active. Well, years ago, I stumbled upon this book that was originally called Body Metaphors. The name of the book changed to Self, Sex, and Spirit by Dr. Gina Polly Haddon. And when I read it, I was like, oh my goodness, she's so right. And I've been teaching this ever since. And what she says is, if you're going to use the body metaphor for the descriptor of yin and yang, yin is the gestating womb. And yang is the penetrating and ejaculating penis. She said, but there's two other physical functions that are so important. So before there's ever an ejaculating penis, there's the undergirding base of the masculine, which is the testicles. The testicular nature of the masculine is supportive and undergirding. That's where the masculine is actually more of the time, generally. So he's got his own yin energy. And the feminine, she says, there is no more powerful yang force on the planet than the womb that pushes forth life from itself. So the feminine absolutely has a yang solar energy. They both have contained within each, the masculine and the feminine, they have both of them. And if we divide it up into the camp of the feminine is only yin, where does all of that really powerful, it's time to birth the baby, where does it go? We need that. We need to honor that. It's also really connected to feminine leadership. And if you have too much of that, then you are pushing prematurely instead of being in that receptive state and knowing the time to push. Same thing with if you're only running the masculine yang and always goal oriented and always directing toward a target, you never experience that masculine leadership of just really holding space for the seeds, for the seed of something to grow and develop before it is planted, before it is nurtured, and before it is birthed into the world. And that's actually how all of our psyches function, whether we're masculine or feminine, we have all four. But there can be some real weaknesses. I mean, when I first started working with this, my yin masculine was not developed at all because I hadn't experienced the yin masculine, only that, yang drive force. So I really took the time to balance that in myself. And I've witnessed it in hundreds of people, how much it helps to balance that, to really strengthen all four of those in your psyche, how much it helps your leadership because you're not operating from just one state of being. You're operating from all that you have access to. And that's just spirit. We haven't even gone to the other elements yet and how they can help your leadership.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love that aspect. It feels so much more complete
Yeah.
before you put it that way, where we're both having that yin and yang, it just felt so separated. It
Yep.
didn't feel balanced. And so when you explain it that way, that makes a lot more sense to me. So did you have any extra thought on, you said we haven't even discussed the other elements. Did you have any extra thought to kind of add to that? For one, that would be my one question. And then my second question would be, do you have any kind of tips for those kind of just approaching this method and wanting to start to embody and get to know the elements more?
Well, let's just start with the tip. And the very first thing is to go connect to each of the elements. Like, go outside and really feel the ground and thank the earth for, being part of your life. I mean, and when you're connected to the elements, don't forget your personal earth, which is your physical body, because that's what houses you. And so connecting to that, and then connect to the water. And you've seen Melanie and I take a sip of water. That is, you're constantly in and out with the water in your life. And then connect to any water that you have near you, whether it is taking a shower, whether it's the water in your glass, whether it's a pond, a river, a stream, a lake. Say thank you and ask, like, to start building a relationship, to really come into more awareness. Same thing with air. We're in that constant flow of air in and out, and that's your ability. And let's just take a minute here and just stop and say what air is, and we'll go back and talk about each of the other elements. But air is your ability to vision. It's the words you say, it's the thoughts you think, it's how you communicate. Really powerful, powerful, powerful tool that, because it's invisible, we sometimes forget about that. So just go take some deep breaths, go for a walk in nature. If you've got a problem you're working with, just open for the elements to really support and help you. And then there's fire, go out in the sunshine, connect to the fire, connect to your energy and what moves your energy and what moves you. And you can always ask questions. You can develop a relationship with the elements. Extremely powerful to do that, because you'll start to understand kind of what fits into what realm, whether it's your leadership, your business, or your personal life. They all can be applied there. And so let's talk about earth. And, we said that it's your physical body, but that is also the structure and form that you live within. And you live generally in a house, the structure and form of your home. We live in the home of Mother Nature, the structure and form of nature herself. So whenever you want to structure anything, whether it's putting a book into form, whether it's building a business, whether it's, you know, redesigning your house, you need a deeper connection to the earthly realm in order for that to be established. And so that's the physical realm. Water functions like the emotional realm. So that's the deep feelings. And if you think about water and you think about your feelings, they are magnetic. Like, you magnetize things into your life from how you feel deeply about something. So it's not what's on the surface of your feelings, but what's in the undercurrent of your feelings that helps you to magnetize something. So when it's in business, this is your client tribe that you're magnetizing, but it's also your relationship to yourself, to your self-esteem, to your inner child, to your relationship to others. This is relationship to anything. Your relationship to your business, your relationship to money, your relationship to your partner, to your children, anything in life. And that's the realm that you want to work with when you're working with relationship. And air, I talked about, it is the mental realm. It functions like your mind does. And again, it's invisible, which is I mean, it's just such a powerful thing. Like, think about an airplane staying in flight or a hot air balloon or, the wind catching the sail of a boat. Air has the capacity to propel you forward. So when you're vibrationally aligned with something, when you're really tuned in at that vibrational alignment level, when you're in vibrational resonance, really powerful things can happen. That's what happens in business when your marketing copy is in resonance with the client that you want to attract and what you're doing. That resonance is highly um, it's congruent, and so it makes a difference in what you're saying and how you're expressing yourself, and it'll attract who you're looking to connect with. Fire functions like the action realm. So think about it this way. When it comes time for spring, it is the heat of the sun that really heats up the soil and springs the plants to life. It brings things into growth, but it also can burn things out if there's too much of it. Fire's the element that we really need to balance well. It's super important that we have a good container for it. And a lot of times, actually, most of the time, when I personally have taught the elements, I teach them the way they come in for me, but sometimes they want to be in a different order. But most of the time, fire comes last because fire is the one that needs the most balance. And think about fire too. What's interesting about it is it creates the rhythm. It creates the day night cycle and it creates the seasonal cycle because it's the relationship to light that's connected to the plants that creates that cycle. So it is very much about the rhythm of things. And if you tune into it really deeply, you'll see that it's balanced. It's not balanced every day, but it's balanced over the course of the year. And you'll find that deep, deep balance is at the core of nature in so many ways. We're balancing our in breath and our out breath. We're balancing the water in and out. I mean, there's so many places, but it's not consistent, always the same balance. It is moving, rhythmic, changing balance. And all of those things impact your leadership, and all of those things impact your business and impact your life. So really, really, really powerful, powerful tools.
I love how you explain it. I could just be lost in listening to it forever. It just feels so alive and magical, just, and your voice, even just the way you explain it, it takes something that might have just been up in my mind, and I just feel it kind of ground. I feel like a sponge kind of soaking in each time you are explaining the elements. As you were talking, I thought about how we're really into the air a lot right now, kind of as a society. So we've stepped out of so much of that physical connection. And I know, especially for my work, everything went online. For my kids, it went online. And so that oftentimes I feel like I feel that effect of things being so much in the mental, things being so much with technology, that I feel called more and more to spend more time connecting in nature. So I'm really glad that we're talking about that. Did you have any kind of added thoughts in regards to what we could really use a lot of, what would help us during this time of just being in a lot of air?
Well, when I very first learned to teach online, like it was many years ago now, but air's not my strongest element, in terms of what I intrinsically have. And I used to get so lost in the air realm because there were so many things to learn, and you could go down these rabbit holes and you could spend all this time on social media and trying to learn all these new technologies. I mean, it was just mind boggling. And I had to really, like, learn how to track and navigate in the air realm and learn how to balance that. And I think it's really, really critical now. So one of the things you can do, there's actually several things you can do. One is literally just go for a walk outside if you possibly can. Do any kind of physical activity. I mean, dance is one of my primary mediums. Put on a piece of music and move. Just get in your body
Mm.
and do things that deliberately give you time for pause and reflection. That again kind of takes you internally, like journal or, you know, do something that pulls you more toward the physical realm. Take a bath, get in the water. Like if you can't go outside much, do anything else that gets you connected to the physical realm to ground you or to the water realm. I mean, taking a bath is a great way to do it. So anything, you just have to be mindful that you're in that air realm all the time and to be cognizant of finding ways to move yourself out of that. And part of the other problem is we go from our computers to TV. I mean, yeah. So whenever you can do anything that takes you out of that, good. It helps to balance your nature and recalibrate you.
I agree. I agree completely. I get an aversion sometimes to certain forms of
Yeah,
technology, just because I've had enough of it, you know?
right. Read a book, a real book.
So I have Barbara that came on. She says, I'm listening. I'm thinking about my golf cart rides with my grandson. I take him to school each morning and feeling the crisper
Mhm.
air in our faces and the clean smell. Then we thank the mountains for their beauty, turn and stand in awe of the sunrise, the colors, the cloud movement. Plus, I love the giggles from my grandson. Yes, just
Wow.
being present. And that's
Yeah,
another thing. I feel like the more connected to nature we are, the more connected, the more physically present we are for others. Like,
yeah.
I feel I'm more present for my children when I'm staying connected to, nature. And yeah, I love that she said that. That's so important. And watching the
Well,
clouds pass.
yeah. And how wonderful that she's being an example of that for her grandson.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
It
Beautiful.
is. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming here. I'm excited for our card pull, but before we do that, I really wanted to make sure that whoever wanted to get a hold of you, they could kind of know what you're up to these days and how they can reach you.
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely. Love to connect with folks. Especially working with entrepreneurs these days, although I'm happy to help anybody. And you can always find me on lisa-michaels.com. Love to hear from you. My email is info@lisa-michaels.com. And I'd love to hear what you're up to, where you need support and help, and to see how much we can continue to put that out in the world. One of the things I've been doing the last few months, really since the pandemic started, is a course called Nourished and Resilient Leader, where we take each of the elements and we go deeper into it, into the kind of wholeness integration that each one of them have. I mean, you really heard me talk about the yin yang of the spirit. That's part of that wholeness integration. And so there's a wholeness integration with every single element. We go into that, we see how that element impacts your leadership. People have really good responses to that. I'll probably do another one coming up in February. So just connect with there. Love to support you, love to help you, and love to hear how you're doing in this time. And again, applying the elements to your leadership and to the growth of your business and to your personal life all makes a huge, huge difference. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. It does very much. Well, that sounds like an amazing program. If you want to leave the link after, I think that would be wonderful. And I'll just let you start with the card pulling. I'm going to go ahead and pull you off and give a quick explanation on how this works, and then I'll bring you back on for pulling from your deck of cards.
Okay.
So today we're going to pull two cards. What I'd like to ask you to do is just take a moment, take a deep breath, put your hand on your heart, and just connect with yourself. Connect with put your feet to the ground, connect with your heart, and really ask in this moment what it is that you need to receive right now. You can use your own intuition, which I think is really, really important to pick card number one or card number two. Doing that just allows you to practice using your intuition as we pull cards. So if you want to share which card that you chose, one or two, if you want to share what you saw first or thought of first when the card came up, that's wonderful. Or if you just want to listen silently and receive, that's good too. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Lisa for her. She's going to do card number one.
Yeah, so I put my hand on my heart just like you suggested, Melanie, and I pulled based on what does your group need the most collectively. And this is from the Elemental Forces of Creation Oracle, and it's a water card called Relationship to Self. So this card is all about tuning in to that deep relationship to yourself. How do you feel about yourself? Are there any things that you personally are struggling with right now? Any ways you can support yourself? And I like to actually, whenever I get a card, I like to journal with it. What does relationship to self want to tell me right now? Maybe you're trying to manifest something and maybe it's not quite there yet. Well, look at it from how it is impacting you in that deep relationship to self. Like, how are you really holding it? And one of the things you can look at is how am I holding it emotionally? How am I holding it mentally? Do I have any old beliefs about that? I was just working with something yesterday in relation to business, and like there were some old things that I needed to let go of. Like, oh, right, that's really helpful. And maybe old physical things that you need to let go of. And, to make space for the new. You will only know that when you tune into that relationship to self. Maybe old energies that need to go, old actions you've been taking that need to shift, that you'll find out those answers at that place of relationship to self. So thanking water and really tuning into that. So just take a moment, breathe into that. Yeah, beautiful. And then let's see what Melanie wants to say about card number two.
Thank you for sharing that. That was amazing. I love those cards. So I went ahead and pulled a card as you were speaking so that we could save on time. And I actually pulled Freya, and which is a new card for me. But I pulled it from this deck. I love the goddess deck, and I felt like it was appropriate. And the little bit that I know of Freya is just that she has that connection to Friday. And so that reminds me of like allowing ourselves to celebrate our body, celebrate our, like you said, our harvest, our hard work that we've been doing. The card itself, so what I like to do is I'm just going to put it up close. So for those of you who are new to kind of reading cards, what you can do is just really look into the card and see if there's a color that really draws your attention, if there's an image that really calls to you so that you can receive your own message. I mean, I'll just kind of share my feelings or thoughts about it. But I feel like if you look into it and really feel into what catches your attention, you get an extra, more dynamic reading for yourself. So it says, unleash your adventurous side, take risks, and be daring. And what I love about this is it reminds me of kind of our topic about leadership. What this says to me is really just embrace your passion, embrace your power, and feel empowered to move forward with your career or whatever it is that's really calling you into action right now. That's the message that I'm feeling and hearing. I see the cat, and then also I see the horn, kind of that loud call to action it reminds me of. Did you have any extra thoughts? I would love to hear any extra thoughts you have, Lisa.
Yeah, well, just seeing her reminds me of how much we need bold feminine leadership in the world right now in a huge way. So the more, like, wherever you feel connected to your bold feminine leadership, like, just take another step with that. And then just when you're ready, take another step. Just let yourself expand into that illumination, into that boldness, into more of the potential of who you are. And the world will be blessed by the gift that you are doing that, which you are doing, Melanie, with this show. It's so fabulous. I just really love it. I love that you're doing it. I love that you're supporting others.
Thank you. I am quite enjoying it very much.
Great. That's great.
Well, thank you for coming here today. Thank you for the card pull. I think it was amazing. I so enjoy everything that you have to say and your energy and your work. Thank you for everyone who popped on. I hope you have a beautiful day, and we wish you all the best of your rest of your day.
Yep. Take care. Thank you.